Hello and welcome to the Magical Learning Podcast for this week. This week we talk about value adding. This is something that you want to do for your business or for your clients or for yourself, then this is the perfect podcast to work out how you can value add not only to your clients' lives, but your own. Have a magical week. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Magical Learning Podcast for this week. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by our classic cast. All the favorites are here, minus Kanika, but we've got most of the favorites here today, so exciting to see everyone. Today, we'll be talking about value adding, and I can say all these people are value adding to me, but before we work out what all that means, let's go around and see what everyone's been up to this week. So, Alan, how are you going this week?
I'm going great, thanks, Jez. Yeah, enjoying the beautiful weather up here on the Gold Coast at the moment, which is, yeah. I know Grahame likes me mentioning how wonderful it is up here.
Well, that's great. That's great. Love to hear it, Alan. John, how are you going this week?
Yeah, it's not bad actually this week. It's having had a 4-day Easter holiday and now a short week, another short week next week. It's all good. Life's good.
Awesome. And Danette and Grahame are on the same screen today, so I'm going to ask both of you at the same time. How's your week been?
Yeah, it's been good. Yeah. We've been in Sydney this week, and I made it safely back from Kona in Hawaii on last weekend. So life's good.
I did not make it safely back from Kona last weekend because I did not go.
and yes. How was your week?
Yeah, it was a good week. Kanika and I, someone you'll remember from the podcast, we both got married this week on Wednesday. Just did a little ceremony. Yes, that was part of the deal. Yeah. So thank you very much. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So that's some value added to my life, and which is the only way to segue into today's topic, which is on value adding.
Correct answer, just in case Connector watches the recording.
That's so today we've talked a lot about value adding in previous podcasts, and it's a concept that I think we're quite good at Magical Learning, and we're always thinking of new ways to do it. But I think it can be sort of a maybe a slightly ambiguous topic for some people. So I do want to kind of get into what it is and how it can help a business and stuff. So I just wanted to sort of go through everyone and see what they all think. So I might start with you, Danette. What is value adding?
So for me, it's constantly looking at how can I improve something, whether it's streamlining, whether it's coming up with a new way of doing things, or even if it's stop doing something to, get rid of stuff that really doesn't value add. I also think it's just thinking creatively or innovatively about what could we do differently? How could we serve others better?
Cool. All right. Awesome. So, all right. Thanks for that, Danette. Awesome. Grahame, I'll go to you next, staying in the same screen there. What is value adding?
Well, I took a, not surprisingly, slightly different approach to the question. I looked at it more from a customer service or a client service perspective. As a business providing service to clients, how do we value add? And for me, part of that, which is sort of tied in with what Danette said, it's looking at how can we, or how do we both, how can we and how do we deliver more than our client expects pretty much every time, which links back into Danette's response.
Okay, cool. All right. So we're getting a couple of different perspectives. I already like that. That's great stuff. John, I'll jump over to you. What is value adding?
It's a buzzword. It's a word that's being floated around at the moment to make people sound important, I think. I guess it's, an additional feature or, getting some value out of something, doing something different. But for me, it's doing something for someone they didn't expect. And whether that's a customer or whether that's a friend or a loved one, whatever it is, but yeah, just something they didn't expect that actually adds value or helps them.
Awesome. Thanks for that, John. And Alan, I'll throw to you. What is value adding?
A slightly different perspective, but it kind of ties in with what everybody's saying here, Jez, where for me, it's showing up and serving others. And I think what John just said there, showing up to to be there to do that one extra thing. And I think serving others, we get so much value for ourselves when we're serving other people, because we'll always do more for somebody else than we will for ourselves. And that's a great way. For me, that's a great motivator.
I love that approach. Thanks for that, Alan. I've loved all those answers, because they all I feel like they all circle around a similar idea of putting the customer in exactly kind of what you're just saying there, Alan, but putting the customer kind of in a place where you go, I want to be them. What would be something that would be amazing for me? So that's really cool. So thanks for all those. I might jump onto question 2 here, which is, what are the benefits of value adding? And I'll start with you, Alan, for this one.
I guess I'm looking at 2 perspectives there, Jess. One is for our customers, and one's for ourselves. I think it's that extra value that our customers really notice is when we go above and beyond. And I think when we go above and beyond, that's when we realise how valuable we are and how much we're capable of that we probably didn't even realise ourselves.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. Thanks, Alan. John, I'll go to you. What are the benefits of value adding?
In a business sense, it helps you attract or keep your customers. They get a sense of, something warm and fuzzy that they may not have got elsewhere, or they see the difference that you add to what others are doing as well. So that's one of the benefits. Gives people a warm feeling that they think that they've got something for nothing, or that they've got that extra thing that whatever it is. I do like where Danette was going though with in terms of ourselves. What is it we can stop doing to add value to our life? And it may be those those $25 jobs that we don't want to do anymore because I can spend my time better. That can add a lot of value too.
Yeah, I might even just stay on that one for 1 second, because it is interesting to think of adding by subtraction in this context. So maybe I'll get John and anybody to talk a little bit more on just what that value adding through subtraction can look like, because that's kind of interesting to me.
Well, to go a bit further, Grahame, we've talked many times, there's things in magical learning that Grahame does because no one else does, or someone has to do, but they're not things he enjoys, or they're things that other people could do better than what he currently does them at. No offence, Grahame. But
none taken.
But it's those jobs that someone's got to fill. So if you were to give those to someone else, it frees up your time to get doing what you enjoy, or get creative around what you're doing, or how you could do something different. It frees up your space. So I don't know whether others have got an opinion on that.
Yeah, I like that, John. Thank you. So does that mean that you're going to do all the things that I currently don't? Is that where we're heading?
Sorry, you're breaking up. I can't hear
you. Everything on the the thing that came up for me then is, and John mentioned the word space, because I think that the whole adding by subtracting is when you stop doing something, it creates a vacuum. So there's suddenly free time, there's space there for something else to come into that. So it's adding by subtracting in the short term, but then hopefully filling that space with something more valuable. Cool. So it's a great idea.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thanks for that, you guys. Oh, I'll stay with you here, Grahame. What are the benefits of value adding?
I had an interesting conversation in a class that I was running last week, or actually earlier this week, about the idea of organisational resilience. And the context, the subject matter we were talking about was a little different. But I think there's a similar principle here, that when, as an organisation, when we buy into this idea of value adding, and this in part goes back to what Danette was talking about earlier about the stop doing thing. How do we add value? How do we get better? How do we improve? How can we be more innovative or creative? One of the advantages for a business, for an entity, is this: when we get most or all of our people in that sort of mindset of looking for opportunities to add value to not just what we do, but to who we are, to how we show up just as a human being. One of the consequences from that can be much greater organisational resilience. And given the weird planet that we currently are, we're currently experiencing, and it's probably not going to change anytime soon. I think having personal resilience is hugely important, but then building that resilience within an organisation also makes it easier for us to look for more ways to add value. So it's like a self-fulfilling sort of prophecy thing.
I love that. And I think that also kind of ties into what we're talking about a little bit with the creating more space to be able to develop those things. So I love that. Thanks so much for that, Grahame. Awesome. Well, I'll stay with you there. Danette, what are some benefits of value adding? You're on mute. Just
Graham's in charge of mute.
It was an accident. I was trying to value add.
So I think if you think that everyone in an organisation, if everyone gets this idea of, if I could make one tiny little change every day to value add, whether it's to a team member, to yourself, to a client, just to the community, that 1% change over a year is a massive change in the organisation, the impact people have on one another and on themselves. And so for me, the benefit, if we all did it, is a much, much better world. And I think on a personal level, the moment you start value adding for someone else, you're saying, you matter to me, I care about you. And that creates that whole connection, which at the end of the day is super, super important.
I like that word connection as well. That's I think, great word for this. So yeah, awesome. Thank you, everybody, for those. Now for the big, exciting one, which is question number 3. How can you value add? So if you've been listening to this and you're going, okay, I like what everyone's talking about. I want my customers to feel really happy and almost overwhelmed with what I'm doing with them. And what can I deliver to people just day to day as well through value adding? I guess this is the big question. How can you value add? So I might start with you, Danette. How can you value add?
So I've got 2 ideas. So the first one is, and I learned this in coaching, that anything you're doing, if you start going, we call it a toleration. So you're tolerating something, that process is ripe for improvement. So just anything that rubs you a little bit the wrong way, have a look at that and go, how can I make that easier? How can I make that more effective? And the second one I had is, when you're with a group of people and someone puts up a new idea about how can we improve, instead of being the no but person, be the yes and person and empower everyone to do better. So they're my 2.
That's awesome. I love that. Thank you so much for that, Danette. Grahame, how can you value add?
One of the things that sort of came up for me was, and again, this is more in the context of how do we add value for clients in a business context, and that's get curious, because it's relatively easy for a business to make a decision and decide, well, we're going to do this as a way of adding value for our clients. The fun thing about adding value is the perception of value really rests with the client. If I'm doing something to add value for somebody else, it's really up to them to determine whether or not it adds value. So I think that's where curiosity can be really helpful, when we actually, and it's like just taking that extra time and being curious and trying to actually understand what would a value add look like for a client, for a customer, and then look for an opportunity to give them that, rather than just making an assumption that, oh, this will be good, here, have one of these, and finding out later that
I didn't want
it. Oh, I've already got 3 of those, thanks anyway. Curiosity.
Yeah, I love that, Grahame. I think I actually have a good story about when someone tried to do that the wrong way. I was listening to a podcast that had Jeff Goldblum on it, okay? And he was talking about one time he was doing a play and the reviews were quite poor. And the director brought him in and said, here, don't worry about what you're hearing outside. Let me read you a review. And the review was like, the play was fantastic, aside from Mr. Goldblum, who's, and then it was a negative review. He didn't read the review properly. And so after that, he was like, oh, well, never mind about that. here, take something from my desk, and just gave him a random knickknack that was on his desk as a toy, I don't know how much value adding that would have had. So yeah, I think you're right.
Great story.
It's a good idea to think about maybe what could value add a little bit better than that.
Yeah. Nice one.
Awesome. John, how can you value add?
I think it is going back to what Danette was saying. It's those 1%ers. If you talk in sporting terms, it's those extra things that 1% you can do different. You know, Grahame and Danette, you both talk about going to Robin Sharma's things, and when you walked into the room, there was a package there on your bed or in the room for you that you didn't expect, whether it's chocolates or a book or whatever it may be. You know, Apple, when you talk about Apple and they're doing their computers, they spend as much time on how are we going to package it up and how are we going to put it all together in the wrapping as they did on the machines themselves. So the whole customer experience was part of that. It wasn't just once they've got the computer out, what is it going to do? It was how do they receive it? What do they get? As part of that. So for me, how do you value add? Well, how do you make things easier for people to do whatever it is? If you buy online or come into your store or get what they need, how do you make it easier for them?
I like that as well. I like that approach as well, not just adding extra stuff, but also just making things more streamlined and easier can in of itself. Like that's another addition by subtraction. Subtracting obstacles makes things a little bit better. So I love that, John. Thank you for that. Alan, I'll throw to you. How can you value add?
I've got a slightly different perspective, Jez. I'm looking at it from the point of view of who are we when we're talking about what can we subtract. It would be very easy to stay in our rut, stay with our pre-planned ideas. Yet, like Danette was saying before, who are we being? Are we being creative? Are we being playful? Are we open to the yes and are we able to handle a bit of discomfort and try something different?
I love that as well. I love all good answers. I love that they've all come from such different places. So that was awesome. Thank you so much for that, Alan. Well, thank you everybody for jumping on and doing this today. Definitely value added to my Friday. I'll definitely say that. So hopefully everyone's feeling that as they're listening to this today. I also want to thank everybody for listening. We've had another massive week for listeners. So it's great that everyone's getting out there and listening. We really love it and that everyone's sharing and spreading the word. So it's good. Alan, I'll sort of do the final rounds here. Any final thoughts on value adding?
I guess the one in my head, Jez, is being present. It's just being present to what other people are wanting. If we're going to give them a gift, are we just handing out leftover stock that we didn't really want and they don't really want, or are we thinking about them and that one missing piece that we can add to their puzzle?
I also love that one missing piece. I love that idea, Alan. It's a good concept. Thanks for that. John, I'll jump over to you. Final thoughts on value adding.
That if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And if you want something different, you need to change.
Awesome. Thank you for that, John. Grahame, final thoughts on value adding.
I think just adopt an apprentice mindset. If you're an apprentice, then you're still learning. So if we stay away from the idea that we are a master at anything, probably a good place to start.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Grahame. I also love that sort of feeds back into that stay curious thing that you were mentioning before. So that's perfect. Awesome. Thank you for that. And Danette, final thoughts on value adding.
So I think, we go to work for however many hours a day, and we can either just turn up and do our job. It doesn't take any more effort to look at how can I improve this job? How can I improve my colleague's day? How can I improve? And it could be as simple as a smile. That value adds for most people when you say, good morning, how are you? And be present. So I think if you think about this is how you contribute, it's how you show up every day. And if you want to stay relevant, your workplace, your colleagues, your clients, etc., will love you if you're constantly looking at how do you value add. And I think that includes yourself too. You need to look at how do I value add to my own life, whether it's learning, development, that whole getting curious and getting uncomfortable. So it was a long-winded answer, but I love value adding, so you can see why.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I love that as well. I think that I loved the podcast today because everyone had a different perspective and stuff. So that was, as always, it's always good. But today I really came into this very blind. I usually have little written answers, but I was just mostly interested to hear what everyone had to say. So I want to thank everybody for a good podcast today. As I mentioned before, we have had a small spike in listenership. So if you do want to spread the word, we love that. Also, if you go onto Spotify, you can watch these podcasts, and we also have a little question thing that you can fill out if you want to be on. We'd love to have more people on as well. We love having guests. Speaking of, next week we do have a guest. Though I have not written it on my calendar. I wish I had it, but we do have a guest.
Kylie James.
Kylie James is on next week.
Yes.
So get excited for another guest interview. That'll be a really fun one. But otherwise, I want to say thank you all for value adding to my Friday and all our listeners' Fridays. And thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks so much, Jez. Thank you,
Thanks,
John.
John.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Alex.
Thanks, Jez. Thanks all.
All right. Have a magical week, everybody.